I think it's fair to say Ferrari has been the most disappointing team of 2025. Now, I do think Charles Leclerc is having one of his best seasons, even if the car is not up to par. He is extracting the most possible from it. And Lewis is in his first season of Ferrari, and while that's not an excuse, it is somewhat of a valid reason as to why he is behind Charles, and we'll really have to see if he can be up to par in 2026. But the biggest talk around really Ferrari has been its SF25 car. It's not because of the drivers that it's been disappointing, it's purely because the car doesn't have the performance and it's really lacking in the rear part of the car. They ended up changing 99% of the car from the SF24 to the SF25, and clearly the payoff to changing that much of the car has not worked properly. But there is an upgrade coming that has been talked about now for about a month or so that could be Ferrari's game changer, really the part that they need. So let's discuss this SF25 as a whole. Will it truly change soon, and will this be the game changer they need? If you're new here, please go ahead and subscribe. Would mean the world. Thank you all for the support. Let's get started with this video. So the upgrade I've been talking about, if you do follow Ferrari specifically, is a rear suspension upgrade. It's been talked about in the paddock a lot that Ferrari is planning to roll this major update out within the next 3 races. There have been some talks of it being in Canada. I've heard Austria as well, and Silverstone was the planned target. So if it's brought earlier, which right now the expectations are that it could possibly be in Canada, but if anything, I would expect more Austria than Canada. It's going to be a critical evolution to actually unlock what they have been calling the untapped potential of the SF25. This word has been thrown out so much, and it's quite frustrating to hear because whenever Ferrari is talking about this car, it's always potential and not actually extracting the performance that the car can possibly get. But it is designed to fix some serious handling issues that have plagued the car from the start, and why we cannot see this quote-unquote potential on track. Out of the top 4 teams being Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, and McLaren, they're the only team that is stuck with pull rod in the rear part of its car. They did end up actually changing the front suspension from a push rod to a pull rod, which was supposed to actually revolutionize the car. It hasn't really brought them the performance, but it's mainly in the rear why they're struggling so badly. They've continuously been shrinking the rear part of the car when it comes to the gearbox and those internal components to have them optimize the car's kinematics, being the suspension, and develop a more advanced diffuser in the hopes of boosting its efficiency and aerodynamics. The actual upgrade itself could be a ticket to actually bridge that gap to McLaren, because if you look at race pace, they're not far off. It's in qualifying where they struggle so badly. Looking at the average last GPs, qualifying performance, we got Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull, and Mercedes. And now, just note here, I did take for Red Bull the average, just max, because it's not fair to put in the 2 drivers to actually compare the top 4 cars. If Yuki was included, think of that bar graph being a little bit more similar to Ferrari, even actually worse than Ferrari's average qualifying position. But looking at it here, they are the 4th fastest car in qualifying, whether that's in the last GPs or just in general in this season. It's clear to see that's where the problem is coming from. The weaknesses of the car, and what's really frustrating for both Lewis and Charles, is that lazy rear end, especially on corner entry, which has been a nightmare for Lewis to say the least. The car suffers from understeer, but when trying to warm up the tires, you oversteer a lot as well. It's a mixed bag and not a very good one. It doesn't have a very sharp turn-in, which is something that both Lewis and Charles really like on a car. And it's costing a lot of time in the slow speed stuff. In high speed, they're actually very competitive, and that's when they show off their wings best. Monaco was the exception, but you gotta remember every team goes in there with a setup that has no compromise really. It's just the same setup, bolt on as much downforce as possible, and Leclerc and Lewis throughout his career have always been very strong on the Monaco streets. Now, we've talked about this a lot, but their setup is super sensitive. Small changes in balance or track conditions cause performance swings that drastically make the difference in qualifying and the race. They also have to raise the ride height of the car to avoid floor wear. We saw this problem in China and how they both got disqualified. In Spain, they were actually running the car very low as well, and towards the end of the stint, it is rumored, it's not confirmed, but Charles kind of had to lift and coast to not get too much plank wear to actually make it to the end, hence why he fell so far back from the McLarens, even though he did finish on the podium. With raising the ride height, you automatically lose downforce and rotation and really the balance of the car. And the issue is the squat behavior, which is in the rear suspension of the car. where the rear just dips too much on their load. This obviously gives aero gain if you do know how to do it, but right now it's giving too much excessive floor contact, which is killing the performance. Getting those tires in the operating window has been the biggest struggle really for the team, and why in qualifying they fall so far back. If they started P3 or 4 on every track where they were behind, then there is a possibility of them fighting the McLaren cars sometimes in race pace. They truly have been fast. I feel like Jeddah was a very good representation of when the car is put into the right window. It gives them some clean air like Leclerc had, and you'll really see the performance be pushed out of the car. Lewis went on to say that in Spain, the car was the worst that I ever felt, and there was some floor damage to the car, hence why he was behind and Nico actually caught him. He did also have fresh tires while Lewis was running older tires. But regardless, Lewis has not been great in the car. I mean, a big struggle from a guy that's a 7-time world champion. If this upgrade can come in and stabilize the car, then we can talk about them fighting the McLaren car, especially in the hands of a guy like Leclerc. I've talked a lot about Lewis's driving style, why he's struggling with the Ferrari, which is pretty much the same reason why he was struggling with the Mercedes as well. This floor era just does not work with the guy that loves to brake super heavy and relies so much on gaining time on braking as hard as possible. When you have a guy like Max Verstappen who drives in a completely opposite style of braking super early but carrying just the right amount of speed into these corners. Lewis excelled in the previous cars. First of all, the ride height on those cars was much better. You could actually go over curbs much more easily than in these cars. And in general, braking harder was much more accessible in the previous generation of Formula 1 cars. And Lewis has just struggled to adapt, going from Mercedes to Ferrari. It's one of his weakest seasons that he's had. I don't think it's as bad as people are putting it out to be, because the guy still, on average, is not doing horrible. And he is against Charles Leclerc, who's been in the team for such a long period of time. I think it'll only be fair to judge probably by the end of the season. And if he doesn't start off 2026 good, then that's when we can talk about he's truly lost his form. Even with these very emotional responses he ends up giving on Sky Sports, or really the F1 channel, it comes naturally when you're in a car that you can't extract performance from and your teammate is just beating you out from race to race. But that's really all I wanted to talk about. I wanted to go over this rear suspension upgrade. That is the key for the team, bringing that performance, being able to extract the most out of the car. Let's see when it comes, and we'll talk even more about it when it is bolted onto the car. This could be their game changer. I'm not saying it will be, but it very much could be. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think if they bring this, the car will truly change and they will be able to extract that untapped potential that Frederick Vasseur has talked about so much? Leave a comment down below. Please leave a like, subscribe. It would mean the world, and peace.